Welcome to the All Football Podcast. I'm Josh McSwain, joined with my co-host AJ Torres. It's NFL Draft Week, folks, and AJ's got a whole lot of NFL Draft coming at you. He's got an entire first-round mock to share with us. We're going to go through all of the picks. We got some slam dunks, it looks like, at the very beginning. We got some potential trades going in the middle, and one significant move already has been made. Well, I should say another one. The first most significant one was the Niners trading up. Now, the Chiefs have done something with their first-round pick, and I think it's going to make AJ happy what they did with it.
No,
and then
actually.
After that, we're going to talk about the CFL's return to play. We finally have something from this league. Hallelujah.
I can agree with that one.
But anyways, let's jump in to your mock, AJ. I think the first two picks are kind of slam dunks at this point.
All right. So I think you could basically tattoo these. You could make a shirt. Some of these guys have already made endorsements. But let's just say them for the hell of it. We got the Jags, first overall, going with Trevor Lawrence. And you got the second pick, the New York Jets, going for Zach Wilson. Now, the second pick was arguable, I want to say, up until the Sam Darnold trade. But since Donut went to Carolina, and let me tell you something, just in the last, I want to say, month and a half, this mock draft for the first round has been modified several times. And there's only one trade I have in here, but we'll get to that pretty soon. Now, there's a lot of controversy surrounding a couple of picks. So this is where it gets into the nitty-gritty. This is number 3. We got the 49ers via the Dolphins via the Texans. It's a quarterback because they weren't trading up there for an offensive lineman or a linebacker or anything else. So I'll know a lot of people are going to give me hell about this. But if you go by the experience, if you go by the tape, I'm going Justin Fields.
All right, then.
I think there's going to be a lot of people that will disagree with this, but hey, this is a mock for a reason.
That's true. I had seen something on Twitter earlier today. It may have been from Ian Rapport, something like that, saying that the Niners had narrowed it down to either Mac Jones or Trey Lance. Of course, with anything you read on Twitter regarding the draft at this point in time, take it with a massive grain of salt. But I would honestly lean a little bit more toward Lance if I'm the 49ers, knowing that I don't have to start a guy immediately, because I feel like Mac Jones is one of those low ceiling, high floor kind of guys. I don't think he's going to be great in the NFL, but I don't think he's going to be a bust either. I think he'll just be a solid guy most of his career. Justin Fields, obviously we've talked before about all of the Ohio State quarterbacks and how they've all flunked, but that is also committing somewhat of the gambler's fallacy. You're assuming these independent events are somehow related. Think about the Texas Tech quarterbacks. You look at Cliff Kingsbury, B.J. Simmons, Graham Harrell, all of them, they put up a bunch of yards at Texas Tech. They never panned out in the pros. But Patrick Mahomes seems to be doing just fine.
Well, Texas Tech prospects, period, if you think about it. Outside QT and Mahomes, you can't think of any where you go, oh, yeah, they came from Texas Tech. And before Ohio State, Fields played at Georgia. Also not another quarterback breeding ground. I was actually talking to future Dr. Zach, and he goes, you know what? Georgia doesn't have a great program if you look at history and quarterbacks. So, I mean, if you go towards these two schools, and then he had the transfer rule that, it's getting removed now, which is nice. But if we got to go by just talent alone and just cut out everything else, I'm thinking Fields. And plus, I'm just not sure about Mac Jones as far as starting day one. And it seems like they're getting rid of Jimmy Garoppolo a stat.
Well, you'd think that was true, particularly earlier in the offseason. I would have thought that was a guarantee, but I just don't know which seat in the NFL is open at this point. Who would want to make a move for someone like Jimmy G right now? I think his only place is in San Fran for another year. But
It's weird, man.
he has to know his time there is running out. He's not the future of that organization. He knows it. Ownership knows it. Kyle Shanahan knows it. They're going to get their guy, and they're going to look to try and make a smooth transition. That's just the way it is.
Understood. Now, there's no really lock on this one because I think the first two are a lock, and then once it gets to number 3, all of it gets interesting. And now we move on to the 4th pick. This is my only trade for this one, honestly. And my thought is the whole impact of the NFL draft rests in the shoulders of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, there's some people saying, hey, give us Kyle Pitts. Let's go all in on him. Let's remember the days of Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez. Now let's make it Matt Ryan, Julio Jones,
Calvin
Ridley, and now let's make it Kyle Pitts. What can go wrong? The fact of the fact of the matter is 2 things. Number 1, your defense,
still
which could potentially be the last year's Cowboys. And number 2, the 4th quarter. It doesn't matter if it's Kyle Pitts, Matt Ryan. Listen, Kyle Pitts could go out there and he could drop 10 passes, okay? The defense still has to hold, and they're still going to blame it on Matt Ryan no matter what the case may be. So, without further ado, I have a trade. The one and only trade I have in this mock list, and that is the Chicago Bears move up to number 4. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why on earth would they trade up? We've talked about the Bears, and we've talked about how we have 2 guys who might have their jobs open come Thanksgiving. That is Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. So out of desperation, even though this isn't the best move for them to make, because they've had quarterbacks come in through like a revolving door in a restroom, I think they're going to take yet another quarterback and see if this guy is a hit. Because they gave up on Mitch Trubisky. Listen, you could have gave up on him earlier, but then it just got to the point where it goes, listen, for salary cap and everything else, at least he did okay. Signed for a 1-year deal. I think $5 million would have kept him in town because nobody else would have wanted him for more than that.
It's true.
And you keep going from there. So even though you have Dalton in the town, which I'm not sure what the case may be there is, but I think with Trey Lance going to the Bears, I think this is a desperation move by the general manager and the head coach to save their jobs. I don't think it will work, but that is just my theory. And I know Anthony K is going, why?
Well, I think he probably knows why it's going to happen. It's a desperation measure, but he's just on his knees praying it doesn't happen.
Pretty close, yeah. So about Atlanta trading, the reason why I think this is the case scenario is because I think this is going to be a rebuilding year. If you look at that division, it's stacked. And I think next year, I think they're going to end up trading Julio Jones. And once you build up the defense and you get that system in place, I think they're going to be a threat again.
Well, before we go too far away from Atlanta regarding the Julio Jones situation, lots of rumors have said he could be traded after June 1st for cap reasons. So
potentially,
if he were not in Atlanta next year, I wouldn't be surprised. Of course, they're tied to Matt Ryan for another year. Ryan's not going anywhere.
Well,
It could be a
my thought
situation.
is this: if you go by the skill, right? Like there's some times where some people say, when do you move on from your quarterback? When you have these quarterbacks that are in those rookie deals, a 4-year deal, 5th-year option. You know what I mean? Baker Mayfield had his 5th-year option exercised. You know, some people don't have that option exercised. Mitch Trubisky didn't. Another reason why he
Right.
didn't stay in Chicago. So there's some times where some people are like, you know what, we're tied to this guy. We have to respect the process. But you got Matt Ryan, that's a top 10 quarterback. And the only reason you want to move on is because of salary cap. I mean, okay, if he falls down in production, I get it. But if he's still solid, see if he could restructure, because at the end of the day, who's going to replace him? You have to have incomplete faith to somebody to replace him. I just think if you're going to spend your 4th-round pick when there's a lot of needs on this team, defense, everything, offensive line, and I mean, I guess you could say running back, but that is definitely low on the list.
It is.
With all of that going on, I'm not thinking quarterback. There's so much you need, and I think it's going to be a 2-year process. I'm very okay with them trading down.
It could be, but my point is Ryan's contract is so that they couldn't move him this year, but they might be able to move on from him after 2021 and not get absolutely blasted by the cap in that situation. So that's why I'm thinking if the Falcons do hold the number 4 overall pick, then they might take quarterback here and try to get a smooth transition going on. Of course, if they don't like any of those quarterbacks that they would have scouted and seen, they could take someone else or they could try and trade. Do you think that some team might be willing to trade into that 4th slot to take Penne Sewell, who is either the first or second best prospect in the draft? You could debate him or Lawrence as the best, but I do think there could be some demand for that 4th pick, because both of us are assuming quarterbacks go the top 3. Sewell is sitting there. Some team might want him.
My only thought is that out of all the drafts that I have looked into, I remember previous drafts, I think it was last year where there was the 4 offensive tackles and then there was everybody else.
Right.
This year it's much different. There's a lot of depth at the offensive tackle. Now, some you could argue they moved to guard, but the offensive line talent goes so deep, it's going into the 3rd round.
Okay.
So even though Sewell might not be, Sewell is probably the guy, a stud, what many are calling a once-in-a-decade talent. Even so, give up a 1st round for it? I'm just not sure if I see that.
Okay, that's fair.
Which actually leads to number 5. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have locked it in. The Cincinnati Bagels select Penne Sewell, offensive tackle, Oregon.
Yeah. I think the Bengals would thank their lucky stars if he falls to them at 5. I've seen other mocks that had them taking Jamar Chase, and it's nothing against Chase. He's a very exceptional prospect, but it's like you have best player and something of need. It's like if you are the Bengals, it's like, and he's still there, it's like, okay, take 2 seconds, write his name in, we're done.
I think that's more of you talk to your quarterback and he says, hey, who do you want? Now, mind you, Patrick Mahomes said, I want Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when I think the best running back, rookie running back last year, I think it was Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, if he's on the board, could you imagine? I'm not going to play what ifs, but sometimes you ask your quarterback, who do you want? And he goes, I want this guy. Now, whether that's the case scenario, the Bengals have a very old school owner. And I don't think he's going to go to the need of his quarterback. I think that he's just going to take whether if you take a need or if you take next best available, it's Sewell. So that's a lock in.
Agreed. All right, 6.
A little controversy surrounding this one for some people, but my next two picks are wide receivers. The Miami Dolphins, I don't have Tua's old receiver and Heisman winner. I have Miami Dolphins selecting Jamar Chase, wide receiver, LSU.
I'm down with that.
And mind you, wasn't he this guy is the one who I think played I think he was number 1 or number 2 to Justin Jefferson. Now, call it the LSU system or not, something to be spoken of. And number 7, I thought about this one for a bit. My first thought was Micah Parsons, but I actually got to change that because after the 2 wide receivers in Detroit left, they got to sign somebody. Now, is there a little uncertainty about Devonta Smith's size? I know he's under 170 pounds at his height, which makes him very thin. And, there are some people that are very concerned about it. But me, you know what? He's a speed wide receiver. He's an elusive talent. And Goff's got to throw to somebody besides TJ Hawkins.
Indeed.
So I think the smart play is to go Devonta Smith. And from here, I think they're going to see if they can get some value picks on defense. That team's in full rebuild outside the quarterback.
That's true. All right, Carolina, who you got?
The next available pick I got is Kyle Pitts. Now, this is a great defensive team. They've drafted well defensively. And with Curtis Samuel leaving in free agency, I'm going Matt has ruled, and he's going with Kyle Pitts.
I see no problem with that one. Number
now,
9.
There is a rumor also that Teddy Bridgewater, there is a rumor about him being linked to the Broncos.
Okay.
So a lot of people are saying here, okay, for the Denver Broncos, number 9, what do they want to get? Now, there's been a couple things suspecting quarterback, and my also original pick was Caleb Farley. However, as the draft went on, and then as far as needs went, when they signed a couple defensive guys, this might be a little uncertain for some people, but I'm going Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle from Northwestern. And my concern is the last couple of years, that offensive line has been neglected. The quarterbacks have been going in and out of there. It doesn't matter if it's Mac Jones going back there. It doesn't matter if it's Drew Lock or one of the 4 quarterbacks from last year. They do not have offensive line. The rush game, it was good, but could have been better. And you want your wide receivers to actually have time to run their routes? Get a guy on the offensive line. Do I think this is Drew Lock's last year to prove himself, though? Absolutely.
I would agree with you on that. Now, the Broncos, they missed Cortland Sutton almost all of last season. But the reason I would disagree about offensive tackle is that Garrett Bowles seems to have finally lived up to his potential and is not just a walking penalty anymore. So for them to use the 9th overall pick on an offensive tackle, you certainly wouldn't do that to put him on the right side, I don't think. So I could see them going for potentially Micah Parsons or, a different defensive back, like you mentioned, because A.J. Boye is gone, and suddenly a defense that won them the Super Bowl in 2015 has been, for the most part, dismantled. Von Miller, who was the MVP of that Super Bowl, he's old. And who knows how good he'll be this year. So I think they got to start looking at that side of the ball too. Quarterback, yeah, that's still a question. We got to get to that, but like you've said, it's a team game, and we got got to look at it holistically. I think the best prospects that they'll have at 9 are going to be on defense, and they are going to have needs, and so they should address it.
It's actually very funny because I look at the Broncos. There's no disrespect to the Bronco fans out there, but I think this is the fourth team in the AFC West. And I think it's without question. I think you got the Chiefs, you got the Chargers, you got the Raiders, and then you have the Broncos. So my thought is, right, you give Drew Lock the best fighting chance to get this offense together, and if he doesn't do it, he's out. Unfortunately, the lock is broken. And after this year, if it does not work for the quarterback, and plus that defense, as you know, is aged and has been separated, it seems like if this year is a bust, it is a full rebuild for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that. I think that the Broncos could perhaps make a jump if they play their cards right. But yeah, you've got the Chiefs, who are pretty much cemented as number one right now. Of course, that's always subject to change. You've got the Chargers with Herbert, who could be pretty interesting. The Raiders, what exactly are they going to be? Nobody quite knows what Gruden and Mayock have cooking.
Plus, the offensive line being weakened is very scary if you're a Raider fan right now.
It's true. Point is, that second spot in the division, it could go to any of the other three. It's just a lot is going to depend between now and then. But anyways, let's move on. Number 10.
Number 10, there has been some speculation, but there's only one guy, and I've been thinking about this guy for a couple of months now. If Jerry World is smart, he needs to lock this in. I got Patrick Surtain II, cornerback, Alabama.
Well, it does seem like the secondary is always something the Cowboys need to address. But
yes.
Sean Lee just retired today, and it's not a surprise to many people who followed him and saw how he played really well but was injured a lot of the time. He was certainly a tough competitor, very good player when he was healthy, but he has hung it up, and I hope the best for him in the next stage of his life. But with that in mind, I would certainly think Parson would have to be a thought for Dallas at that point.
Now, I had this locked in before I found out Sean Lee retired. That was today, April 26th, I found that out. So you're absolutely right. That can be there. My thought is the secondary is the absolute Achilles heel of the defense. So I actually think you're not wrong there. So number 11. Now there's a couple of speculations, but there's some people thinking that the Giants are going wide receiver here. And for some reason, people thought that they were going to go wide receiver for like 3 years in a row for their first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Not this time.
No.
Everybody knows what the weakness is on this team, and it's going offense. Defensively, they got together. Offensively, Danny Wheels and Saquon need that support. I'm going to what many people say is the third best offensive lineman on this list. That is Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle, Virginia Tech.
No argument there. Number 12.
I think Jalen Hurts, now even though he hasn't been deemed the starter, I think that's because they think he's young and they want him to compete. We're going Jalen Waddle. Now, Rager from last year, I mean, he's been hurt. He doesn't have the trust at the moment. Zach Ertz may or may not be traded. They also got Dallas Goedert on the other side. They need weapons to surround this guy here. The offensive line, I think they got a little bit of depth in the draft to upgrade it. But Hurts, if he will be the starter one day, he's going to need some support. So give him another weapon, especially since, I mean, you look at the team, who they got? Rieger, which is unproven, Zach Ertz, Goddard, and then what else?
That is a great question. Miles Sanders? Going to use
Now,
him out of the
no,
backfield all the time, and he's hurt a lot.
well, my thought, I wasn't going by running backs. I was going by targets. The backfield I don't have an issue with. Miles Sanders, I like. Boston Scott, I think, is underappreciated because of his size. I look at him like a Darren Sproles type.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just going to need a lot of time. I think they're going to be rebuilding a little bit. But the NFC East, I mean, they'll make it interesting, to say the least. It is the NFC least, after all.
Yes. All right, 13. Who you got?
So Terry from Undrafted Sports is going to be very happy about this one, with Desmond King being traded for a late-round draft pick because they didn't think they're going to re-sign him, only for him to go to the Texans for a one-year, $3.5 million deal. You got to replace him. Cornerback is vacant. J.C. Horn, cornerback, South Carolina.
Yeah, got to have some defense to prevent the defense from blowing leads. All right, 14. Who you got?
Okay, so even the head coach of the Vikings said that is the worst defense he's ever had. Now, mind you, we don't know who the Bears quarterback is going to be. We assume it's Dalton. But if you got Dalton, Goff, and Rodgers in that division, you need to bolster up the secondary a little bit. Now, as far as corners, I'm not sure who's next best available. I think it goes a little bit downward. But considering that there's guys that have been released, one guy who's actually got a serious criminal charge against him, I'm going Trayvon, Mohrig, safety, TCU. That's my pick for this one.
Okay, 15.
Some people might say it's a little high for the safety, but still. Now, 15, it's a Bill Belichick. Now, I'm not sure what he's going to do with quarterback. I think he's going to give it another year. I could be wrong, though. I could be very wrong. He could very well trade up to get Fields. That's what some people rumor about. I also heard a rumor of trading the first-round pick for Jordan Love, actually. Isn't that crazy?
Now, that would be nuts.
Yeah, search that up. It somehow got leaked out, and I'm not sure what to believe, but that would be absolutely nuts. But Bill Belichick, when it comes to his defense, and it does need to be a little bit bolstered again, I'm going Minka Parsons, linebacker, Penn State.
I'd be surprised if he's still on the board when they pick, but if he is, yeah, he seems like a Belichick BPA selection. 16. Yes.
So a lot of people would go offensive line, but in free agency, it wasn't flashy, but they did sign a couple of guys around the offensive line. They seem to be content with it. Plus, there's the second round because of how deep this draft is. But I actually have an idea on this one. And you know how some people just love to bolster up their pass rush?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Let's say on the Cardinals we got Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, Isaiah Simmons, and with the 16th overall pick, Christian Barmore, defensive tackle, Alabama.
I know they were vulnerable in the run game a little bit last year, so.
And plus, I think if we got Barmore, if we got Watt, we do got Jones, and they're still trying to figure out what to do with Isaiah Simmons. So my thought is, right, if everybody here, these three are healthy, I think this is going to be amazing for the Isaiah Simmons development.
I would agree. All right. 17-18. Here we go.
17, Las Vegas Raiders select Caleb Farley, cornerback, Virginia Tech. You're playing Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert twice a year. You need help in the secondary. Do I go on?
Nope.
Okay. Now, this is another Miami Dolphins pick. Now, some people are wondering, where do you go from here? I'm going pass rush again. I'm going Whitty Pay, edge rusher from Michigan. Some might have him a little bit higher, but again, this draft does go by needs. This doesn't go by someone saying gut instinct, I like this guy. We can't predict all of that.
No, we cannot. All right. 1920.
19, we got Washington. Now, a lot of people are going quarterback. Well, I think Heineke is going to get his chance, and plus you have Fitzmagic on there to tutor him. So quarterback, I'm actually letting go off of this one. Instead, you know what? The linebacker game could use a little bit of work. I hope I pronounce this right. I'm going Jeremiah Owuzu-Koramoah, linebacker, Notre Dame. And I think Riverboat Ron, being a defensive guy, is going to love this guy.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, number 20. Now, mind you, this is via the Bears. I got the Atlanta Falcons. So at this point, we go by need and we go by best available. I got Jason Owa, edge rusher from Penn State. And some people are saying, what do you do when you have a quarterback, a wide receiver, but you need all the defense basically redone, offensive line help, blah, 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 blah. Some people say you need to start with pass rush.
Right.
Makes it easier on a lot part of the defense. So I got that. Okay. You good for 21?
So with number 20, they're picking who exactly?
Jason Owa, edge rusher, Penn State.
Owa. Okay. All right, 21.
Indianapolis Colts. Now, I thought about it here. Some people were saying O-line went still great. The defense is in great shape. And I still think the last couple of years, the wide receiver game has just been just kind of mediocre at best. I still think they got more to do. Now, this is nothing against Phillip Rivers or anything else, but I'm going Rashad Bateman, wide receiver in Minnesota.
I think that's a good idea. They brought Hilton back on a 1-year deal. But
we're concerned about his health. We have been for the last 2 or 3 years.
Exactly.
So with that, you got Pittman Jr., and then you have Bateman left and right. You got a couple tight ends to fix in. I think Carson Wentz is going to be happy with that ordeal.
I would agree.
Okay. So, Tennessee Titans, after dropping the ball on a couple pieces on defense, now some will say that could be a good idea, bad idea. I'm going with corner. I'm going Greg Newsome II, cornerback from Northwestern.
Okay.
No objections?
I can't really say that I find it disagreeable. I wondered if maybe they would look more toward the front seven, but can't go wrong with a secondary. Their whole defense needs overhaul.
We can go with that. Okay, so the 23rd pick, we got the New York Jets via the Seahawks. No surprise. And a little more line help. I got Jalen Phillips, edge rusher from Miami.
I was waiting for his name to be called. Can't really object to that. I think Saleh would like him.
There we go. Now, we got another controversial pick. 24th is the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's more controversial than the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh? How about we add to that with Mac Jones?
Okay.
Guys, my thought is, right, if you do not need a quarterback right now, you're probably not picking one, and you're probably not trading up to get one. If Mac Jones somehow falls down to it, because, again, I'm not sure if you're a team like, are the Raiders going to pick a quarterback? Is Washington going to draft a quarterback? Right now it's leaning towards no. The Patriots, maybe. The Patriots are going to be the wild factor here if they pick a quarterback or not. But on my draft that I got here, Mac Jones falling to the Steelers, that would be a steal. and would it fit that offense? I think so, because we know Kyle Rudolph isn't the answer. We know Dwayne Haskins. I'm not going to say he's not the answer, and I do hope that him or Justin Fields beat the Ohio State quarterback curse. We've mentioned it before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened to Duck Hodges. I think he needs a chance. If Big Ben is going to be, I got 2 bad hips. I can't, you know, my elbow is the size of a softball. You kidding me? If he's going to be like that, and it's going to be rebuilding year after this year, where if Steeler fans like it or not, I think that's a good idea. Now, can this be absolutely ludicrous? Oh, absolutely, and I could be dead in the water. I might as well make an impersonation of the SpongeBob chicken, but I'll take my medicine. It's okay. I take my losses with grace.
Yeah, the only thing is, if he does fall to 24, there will be nonstop comparisons to Aaron Rodgers falling to 24, and it will make me nauseous.
That will make me nauseous, but as a backup plan, I actually have them taking Kyle Trask. I also think they can fit. So if Mac Jones is picking, you know, because there's a couple drafts I've put together. I've had one where Mac Jones falls to a team in the top 15 or possibly the top 10. And I think, you know, again, Pittsburgh's going to be in full rebuild. The next year quarterback draft, I'm not sure if I like. Why not go on Trask? I think he's being overlooked.
Quite possibly. All right, 25. Let's keep going.
25. We got the Jags via the Rams. I think the offensive line needs a little bolstering. Maybe not a name everyone is thinking of, but I'm going with Walker Little, offensive tackle from Stanford.
Okay.
Okay, so
it might depend on how much faith they have in Cam Robinson at this point.
Very true. Very true.
He was supposed to be their guy on the blind side, and, you know, they get Lawrence with the first pick. They're going to want a guy that they're confident that can anchor it. And so Robinson's been a little up and down, so it's totally possible. The Jags D needs all kinds of help, though. I could see them going defense with this selection.
I could as well. So number 26, the one position I think that they needed on the defense. Now, the Cleveland Browns were another record bad defense, even with one of the best pass rushers in the league right now in Myles Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going right here, Nick Bolton, linebacker from Missouri.
Okay.
I just think that a solid linebacker will help with the run defense. I think that's going to be a solid piece to build around. They're going to need more defensive pieces, but I think it starts there.
Yeah, I think that could be a pretty good selection. They picked up Jadeveon Clowney this offseason, put him next to Myles Garrett. Got a pretty good bookends going right there. You have Denzel Ward anchoring the secondary. So, yeah, Bolton, he's a playmaking linebacker. He's very physical.
I just don't see a need to go offense for Cleveland, because if you look at that offense, they got the receivers. They got a great running back duo. You got your quarterback. You got the offensive line and essentially one of the best tackles in the NFL.
That's
the offensive line's holding. You got the offense as a whole. The only thing that would be the problem is the play calling, if anything.
It's true.
That's an offense that you can't sleep on. That's an offense that me, non-biased, have my faith in. The only thing that's wrong is the defense needs to be tooled up. So, okay, you got one corner you have your trust in. You have two guys on the line, and then you have Nick Bolton. Now you just got to be careful where you build around a defense for this draft.
I'd agree.
I'd go all defense, maybe an offensive lineman if he's the next best available for depth purposes.
Sounds fair. 27.
All right, we good. I got Azeez Ojulari, edge rusher from Georgia. With the two edge rushers and the two guys on the line from Baltimore gone in free agency, there was a lot of going on of it was basically flip a coin. What do we do? Wide receiver or edge rusher? So far, you've been run the offense good with just what they got. Why don't you get an edge rusher? Someone who's going to have impact right now. And plus, they got the 31st overall pick because of the trade for Orlando Brown Jr. I'll get to that momentarily.
Yep. All right, 28.
I got the Saints taking Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback, Florida State.
Okay.
And that's Lattimore aside. Outside of his troubles, I think they just need another guy on the D.
I'd agree. 29.
Okay, so we got 29th overall, and this is going to the Green Bay Packers. Now, every Packers fan is holding their breath because we know, as you all know, the Green Bay Packers and the Aaron Rodgers marriage is basically where the husband and wife both know that they're sleeping with somebody on the side, and they're so open and everybody knows about it, you might as well bring that person to the family reunions. This is, well, crucial. And they are not going to make the same mistake again, so help us all. I got Terrence Marshall Jr., wide receiver, LSU. And because of the height comparisons and everything else, and a guy that could be in an offense with a power arm quarterback, again, height, size, system, I think this is the best available. This should be the play.
I would agree. All right, number 30.
Number 30, the Buffalo Bills. Let's see. I hope I don't butcher this last name again. We got Gregory, was it Rousseau, edge,
Rousseau,
Miami?
yeah.
Rousseau. Gotcha. To be honest with you, the Buffalo Bills, I mean, I'm kind of saying this as a Chief fan too, but I think the only thing that the Buffalo Bills need on that team is pass rush and another guy or two on the offensive line. I think that's all they really need. And then it's just, well, come postseason time, you got to get through the Chiefs.
True. And having another guy who can get to Mahomes never hurts. But do remember, in the first game that the Chiefs played the Bills last year, Chiefs ran all over Buffalo. So I don't know if you'd be looking maybe toward the interior of the defensive line, try and bolster the run defense. Honestly, I think Bolton would be a good fit for Buffalo if he's still on the board. But that's not a guarantee.
That would be a big if as well.
For sure.
So now we go to 31st overall. And let me tell you something. I was on Trust the Bank with Josh and McConnell. I've been on it before talking about Lamar Jackson, his contract situation, what he would be worth, XYZ. That was before the cap going down, everything else. And there's a lot of Ravens fans that are absolutely pissed. And they think that they lost this trade. And I'm thinking to myself, no, absolutely not. The reason being is because if you look at what the Chiefs got, you got a offensive, I'm assuming he's playing left tackle because that's why he wanted out of Baltimore. You got him for 1 year, and you'll maybe extend him with the salary cap going back up after the end of the year, which is not a guarantee. Oh, and what are the Ravens going to get? They could get the next best offensive lineman on the board. So you're going to have him for 4 years with a 5th-year option. And guess what? You don't have that big contract for Orlando Brown Jr. that he's going to be asking. You're going to use that money to pay Lamar Jackson. So what are these Raven fans complaining for? I don't know. I'm complaining because they're talking about how the Kansas City Chiefs is a quote unquote dynasty and you're making a 1-year all-in move. A dynasty and you're making an all-in 1-year move? That sounds like more of a team like what Buffalo or what Cleveland would do, maybe the Packers. But you already won it all. You are in the Super Bowl back-to-back years. You got the tools there. And I think that you just need to draft an offensive lineman that you liked, depending on the tape, right? Now, some people will be like, Tevin Jenkins, okay, Alex Leatherwood, okay, is there a third guy? Whichever guy you like and whichever guy fits what you think is your system. And you have him for 4 years minimum. I think that would have been a better fit for the team and the direction they're going than trading a guy for 1 year and praying to God he extends. Because this isn't like baseball where you trade and the trade's not complete until he extends. The Chiefs are taking a big risk here. And they're like, if they win, it's all worth it. If. That's a big if. Because guess what? Buffalo's going to get better. The Ravens got better. If you don't think the Browns are going to get better, if you don't think the Patriots could potentially be back, you are out of your mind. So when I hear if, and that if is the Super Bowl trophy, I'm not buying it. But I digress. I got the Baltimore Ravens selecting Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle, OSU.
Okay. I was thinking you were going to go with Leatherwood at this pick, but I guess not.
Alex Leatherwood could go in here too. Again, it just goes, but the rankings are changing every other day. It also goes by the tape. So Jenkins or Leatherwood, offensive tackle, Alabama, really whichever one they decide to go with here. And if it is Leatherwood, I was picturing him in that red jersey and being happy to myself. And if I'm going to see him in Baltimore purple, it's going to make me sad. I can't lie.
Okay, let's close it out. 32.
32, with so many people coming back from the Super Bowl. Now, I kind of thought about this for a while. I'm like, do you go offensive line? I don't think you're going wide receiver. So hear me out on this one. Not a big popular name. Some people, I thought Najee Harris before Fournette came back, but I'm going with Jamar Johnson, safety from Indiana. And my thought is you got a safety prospect, maybe not a big name, but in this hard decision, I'm thinking that this is going to be a safety that's going to develop very smoothly. Start as a rotation piece, slowing on the nickel defense, put him in on the dime formations, and just slowly develop a good safety for the future. Because when next year comes around for free agency, maybe you're not going to have all your guys there.
I find that selection of a safety to be fairly curious whenever you have Antoine Winfield Jr., who was drafted last year, and he was their starting strong safety all year. You have Jordan Whitehead, who is their other starting safety. Both those guys are very young and played very well. The Buccaneers are in a situation where they don't necessarily need a lot.
Exactly. That's why it was hard. It just seemed to be a next best available on my draft. And since the offensive line was damn good, if not excellent, that was out.
True.
Offensive weapons, I think that was out. Because if you look at the running backs they got on that team, okay, you got 3 running backs. You're not thinking about quarterback right now.
Well, I'll stop you right there. Do you think you'd bring, even though they extended Brady for another year and they'll presumably have him for 2 years, if they really like a guy with that pick, maybe if Kyle Trask is sitting there, Trask does seem like a guy that would kind of fit the Bruce Arians type of offense, and you say, all right, year 3, the job's going to be yours. I could see it happening.
It very well could. And you also might be getting Leonard Fournette's replacement if Najee Harris signs.
Well, the Buccaneers
or maybe
have Ronald
Jonesy's on
Jones and
afterwards.
Keyshawn Vaughn. People forget about Vaughn. He was a pick from Vanderbilt last year. I
Yeah,
think they'd give
there's
him a
the three
chance to come
guys.
into his
Yeah,
own. So I don't know. If you're going to look at offense, you wouldn't look at tight end because you have O.J. Howard to replace Gronk when that time comes.
there's three tight ends on that team.
Right, and you have
That
Brady.
you know all their names. Yeah, you got Brady, you got Howard, you got Gronk still there.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not faulting you for going defense. I mean, this is definitely a situation where they could pick for luxury over need. But
That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, I kind of just looked at the picks. I don't have them off the top of my head from the list I was looking at. But at that point, I was just, I was almost trying, I almost said to myself, let me pick names out of a hat that I saw on my board. I'm like, wait, safety? Develop a guy at that position for just depth? And that's just kind of why I went with. Now, do I think that's absolutely wrong? Yes. Absolutely.
I think there is a chance they could either go with a quarterback for a couple years down the road, or they could trade out of this pick.
At that point, I mean, I still don't think you should trade out of a number one pick, and I'm not sure who would bite for it. What are you going to do? The first round pick next year and like a third round pick just because you don't feel it's necessary right now?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. Oh, well. It'll be interesting to see.
It's just the value.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm scratching my head at this one. I really did not know. And you could almost say this was randomized. I got no shame in doing it. And there's a lot of crazy ones out there. And I could go through all of my copies. Some are obsolete. Some are absolutely ludicrous. But that's why we have these mocks. And pretty soon we'll be doing what would be a redraft. And we could all laugh about this. Some of them might be having a running back taken, well, in the top 15, which I think it's just not a league to do that anymore.
I would disagree with that as well.
You would disagree about a running back?
Well, disagree about taking a running back that high because you can find productive players later. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Well, that's what I was saying. I'm like, I just don't think that a running back is priority to take in like the top 15.
Probably like not unless he's an absolute game breaker. If you were having a surefire Hall of Famer like Adrian Peterson or something like that, that would be the one exception. I just don't know that we have a guy like that.
Also depends on needs, too.
Right.
Like some people said, hey, if Aaron Jones doesn't go to Green Bay, you got to pick Najee Harris. And I'm like, are we forgetting wide receiver again?
I know, right?
Again.
Yes.
Why?
Indeed. Any final thoughts?
I think we covered everything. And draft time, I hope I'm able to message you to see what the heck is going on, because I think that there's something stirring up that is going to drop a bomb on all of us. Exactly what that is, I am unsure of, but I'm pretty sure you sense it coming.
You know, there's always surprises in the draft, but I wasn't sensing a bombshell.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of them. I think there's a very good possibility. I mean, the big bomb. Now, my mock draft only had one trade, but if the Bears blew everybody away and traded up, that's one impact. If the Patriots trade up, I think that's one thing. It's because we never seen them do it because they had Tom Brady for so long.
Right.
And what happens if the least favorite of the remaining three big five quarterbacks go to the 49ers? Everyone's going, oh, yeah, it's Mac Jones. Nah, man, you're out of your mind. It's Trey Lance. What happens if it is Fields?
Yeah, that's a possibility. How these teams evaluate quarterbacks 3 through 5, it's a mystery.
Also, just remember, I mean, if we go back to the quarterbacks a couple of years ago, everyone was high on Mitch Trubisky. Mel Kiper said Mahomes is the guy. And Hugh Jackson said our best quarterback that we evaluate is Deshaun Watson.
Right.
So, anything else?
Nope, that's all for me. Therefore, on behalf of AJ Torres, I'm Josh McSwain. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.